I'm not going to comment. Believe me, I understand.
All right, if I can, well, Chris Lazar is on there. In 1 minute.
I got two.
You got two.
Kenneth, can we go ahead and send?
What's that?
Can we send?
Sure.
Send it, can we?
So, back is great because we get folks to the right place.
Might remind everybody to turn your noise off.
Okay, if I can ask everyone to please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming out to the Rowlett Municipal Forum here. We're going to have a chance to learn a little bit about some of our candidates who are coming out to serve us here in the Rowlett community. First of all, I want to thank the First Christian Church and Pastor Ann for allowing us to use the fellowship hall here. In addition, I'd like to thank Jeff Wingate for videotaping this presentation, and it's going to be available on his Facebook page and also on Facebook pages of various Rowlett groups. And finally, I want to thank Wesley Johnson for agreeing to be the moderator of this event. He's come out to help us in the past and he's always done a great job, and I'm glad to see him here today. Okay, so with no further ado, I'll turn it over to Mr. Johnson now to begin our forum.
Could I say something first about questions? We solicited questions from anybody that was willing to make a question for us to ask the candidates here today. Now, what I'm going to do is share with you that they came from Ken, not our Kenneth here, from Larry, from David, from Betty, from Diane. I'm not going to share you their last names, obviously. There's Jesse. Okay, now this is ambiguous, isn't it? Whether it's a man or a woman. And a Joe, Josephine, Joseph. Anyway, so it came from a variety of sources, and they had various interests. And we'll try to do our best today in order to cover their interests. Okay. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption there.
That's fine, that's fine. Thank you very much for asking me to help out here today. I need to say one thing really quick, and that is, right now there's this major war going on in Europe with the Ukraine. And I think that every day when we wake up and we see that war, one of the things we should be reminded of is we're in a democracy. And democracy requires citizen involvement and citizen participation, and it's work. And when you're out here today listening and talking, you're doing the job of democracy. And it's real important for us to remember that. It's a fragile, it's very important part of our lives, and I appreciate y'all being here today as much as the candidates do. Thank you very much. All right, so I have a series of questions. I am going to ask each of the candidates, and I am not going to start, I don't want to show favoritism. I'll ask one of the candidates the first question first, and then I'll switch the next question. We'll start with the other candidate first so that we have some fairness in presentation. And with that in mind, I'm going to ask you two to decide among yourselves which one of you gets the first question. Yeah, all right. All right, so I'm going to ask Mr. Lanning the first question. And the first question is as follows. If elected, name one specific policy or measure you want enacted.
One of my initiatives that I feel is extremely important is to increase the amount of funding that we throw toward infrastructure. There is an estimate right now floating around of between $140 to $160 million worth of investment that needs to be made over the next 10 years to just keep our roads maintained. That does not include any funding that would be added to that for any new roads or any new developments that would come in that would need infrastructure there. So we, as many folks know, we have a 3-year bond cycle where we allocate funding to that initiative, and I believe that we should be funding anywhere from $40 to $50 million on a regular basis every 3 years toward infrastructure to really be able to get a hold on the condition of our roads.
Mr. Britton?
Okay, appreciate it. I've got a number of things, but let me just concentrate on one thing that I believe over time will help in terms of infrastructure, and that is maybe doing a top-down or a bottom-up review of how we attract business inside our city. For whether it's true or not, the perception is that Rowlett is not a business-friendly organization to deal with. I think we need to do as much as we can, either look at the various policies and the processes that people have to go through in order to get a permit or to establish a business in our city. I'm not saying that we do away with those things because code compliance and those things are very important, but I want to see some flexibility in there because I want us to attract as many local businesses as possible, because I think as we can keep tax revenues as best we can in our city instead of people going to Garland or to Mesquite or to Rockwell, then I think that adds more money to our city coffers, and I think over time that helps us in things like infrastructure. Infrastructure is very complex. It's, as Whitney said, multi-million dollars in order to just maintain our systems, but not let alone trying to improve, enhance some of our road infrastructure. But I really want to concentrate on making sure that we create a business-friendly environment, especially for local businesses.
All right, Mr. Britton, you get the second question first, and the question is, what does diversity, equity, and inclusion mean to you? And this is a specifically question, how do you feel about the lighting of the water tower with the diversity colors?
Okay. If you were in the first forum, you may hear a repeat of my answer to that, and it may be just a little bit around the about, but I think it's important to this question. When I first joined the Marine Corps, my first week in Marine Corps boot camp, we had a drill instructor, and he was one of the largest people I think I've ever seen in my life, get us all together and point out to us that we're not white, we're not brown, we're not Hispanic, we're not Asian, we're going to all be green. Now, I don't know that he understood what he was teaching us, but I know it resonated with me at that point, that what he was teaching us, it's more important about who you are and not what you are. And I've taken that from that first week of boot camp throughout my whole career in the Marine Corps, as well as working in telecom, and up until last year when I really stopped working for a paycheck, that I believe that if we can actually treat people, relate with people on who they are, the content of their character, instead of what they are, I think we go a long way in making sure that we have a very inclusive environment for everybody. I'm not against the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Board that we have, as long as it is truly diverse. Do we have someone from the Hispanic community? Do we have someone from the Black community? Are there single moms on there? Are there senior citizens? Is there a person of faith on there? And are we truly diverse in that we are welcoming diversity of opinion on that? Now, in terms of the lighting of the tower, I'll be very honest. I do not believe that the city should be involved in lighting the tower for any cause or for any group of people. Because I believe once you do that, it never ends. The next person is going to want to have their people or their cause showcased. So without singling out a group, I think we should not be in that business.
Lanny, Mr. Lanny?
Thank you very much for the question. Diversity in this city means that we are a richer group of people. Fabric is not just one color. It's made up of a number of different colors. And Rowlett is certainly diverse in that manner, and our boards and commissions and councils should appropriately reflect that makeup with diversity. For the water tower, we have certain laws that we have to follow as council. As a government agency, we are not allowed to discriminate, and so my votes on that would follow the law. We're required to do that. We have no other choice. So being that we already have a policy in place, we have to follow that policy. We have to follow the law.
All right, third question. Mr. Lanny, would you support affordable housing in the city? And if so, in what form? Single family, multifamily, or both?
So affordable housing is even more important now that everybody has gotten their tax appraisals back, and most of them are through the roof, and unfortunately a lot of folks aren't going to be able to afford to live here for that long if Dallas County keeps having their way. Affordable housing to me means that everybody who wants to live here can live here one manner or another, and I believe very strongly that we should do that. I feel like right now there's a need for 55 and older housing, whether that is single family or multifamily, I think can be debated. I believe that there's a time, a place, and a reason for all of that. But I'm not against affordable housing at all.
Mr. Britton, the question was, would you support affordable housing in Rowlett? And if so, in what form? Single family, multifamily, or both?
Well, this is going to be one of those rare things when you see two people running for the same place agreeing. I believe that we should have as many opportunities, especially for the 55 plus, in terms of being able to find good quality housing. I'm really not all in favor of just opening up the floodgates and having a bunch of what I would consider subsidized housing, if you would. I'm not for that, but I am for making sure that we have good, affordable housing in terms of taking care of our senior citizens.
All right, how much time do we have?
We have lots of time.
Lots of time. All right, open for questions from the audience.
In terms of affordable housing, quite often some of the people who struggle the most are younger people as opposed to older people who often have other resources and other assets once they reach an advanced age. Young people just starting out really struggle. Well, what are your thoughts on affordable housing for younger people in Rowlett?
Are you directing it to either one of us, or?
It was either one of you, yes.
Both.
Both, right? So,
Both.
all right, well, I'll tell you what, I'll take a crack at that first. Affordable housing is necessary for any community to grow. You have to have housing for your restaurant workers, for the folks that really put the grease to the wheel to make things work. And without that, your community is less, I feel it's less of a people to do that. So there has to be somewhere for them to go. The difficulty is that in this city, no one really wants apartments. That's the citizens have come out very strongly with that, and they've said no more apartments. The other complicating factor now is that the average home price in the city is not really affordable for someone just coming out of high school. So it's a very complex answer to that. I certainly think that there are areas in the city that would be appropriate for apartments, but it has to be measured by the ability for us to provide services to those apartments, and then the location of where those are as to whether that's really appropriate for our community.
And I do agree that, yeah, we want to do as much as we can, whether they're 55 or plus or young people just getting started. But we do want to make sure that we are mindful, because when you say affordable housing, someone's going to make up the difference somewhere. And I want to make sure that we don't go down that route where your taxes are being raised to compensate for the affordable housing.
All right, gentlemen. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How much time do I get?
Keep your.
Because I talk a lot.
Go
Well,
ahead.
you're asking a
Let's say-
question,
let's-
you're asking a question, so be sure that
If you
it's,
need 2
Okay.
minutes for your question, we'll listen.
Yes, last week there was a 5-hour Ways and Means meeting in the state regarding rule number 3.334. And I'd like to know about how that's going to affect our city with origination destination on sales tax.
So that rule has to do with the destination of sales tax when it involves a 380 agreement. So that's kind of some technical stuff, but cities are able to enact a 380 agreement, which is an incentivization tool for economic development. And so as part of that, they can kind of look at those sales tax numbers and decide where those sales tax things go. For cities, and I'll tell you that this has virtually zero impact on what's going on in the city of Rowlett. For cities like Coppell, who depend a lot more on sales tax revenue for their budget, it has significant impact because they have a lot of fulfillment warehouses that then this law would determine where that sales tax would ultimately go. So the fight that's going on in the legislature right now is determining where that sales tax actually lands, whether it's calculated as where the person puts in the order for sales tax, or where it actually is the destination where it actually is delivered.
Mr. Britton?
And I'm going to be honest with you, I have to study up on that rule. I'm not as familiar with that rule as Mr. Lanning is.
Any other questions? All right, I have a bonus question.
Bonus.
Bonus.
Is this like
And
450
I'm gonna
points,
let
or-
Mr. Britton answer this first, and the question is, what methods would you like to see employed to increase the energy efficiency of various city assets, not just to save money, but to reduce environmental impacts?
Could you say that again? I know
I
that's a long
will.
question.
I will. The question is, what methods would you like to see employed to increase the energy efficiency of various city assets to not just save money, but to also reduce environmental impacts?
Okay. Well, the one thing that we can't do is start tearing down a bunch of buildings to make them energy efficient. But what we can do as improvements are needed, and especially in the buildings that the city operates in, we need to take advantage of the technology today, making sure that we've got the right kind of windows in there that can reflect instead of let heat in. All the things that have been developed and being developed now, I think we should take advantage of. And as time goes, and as improvements are needed in a particular building, we take advantage of those and to make those improvements. But we can't certainly tear down a bunch of buildings and rebuild them in terms of being green energy efficient.
Mr. Lanning, do you want me to repeat the question?
No. I think I understand what we're getting at. One of the unique opportunities I think that we'll have is over the next 10 years, the city does want to build out parts of its new facilities plan. All of our buildings now are inefficient. They're old, they have cracks in all of them all over, and they're just in poor, really bad shape. So one of the things I would do for that is to make sure that each of those new buildings would be LEED certified, which would certainly help with the environmental impact of that building. Some other ways that we could do that would be to change portions of our fleet over to electric vehicles where that makes sense. Look at developments like Sapphire Bay and make sure they're putting in charging stations for electric vehicles to encourage the use of that type of technology. We 3 years ago, we changed the ordinance to allow homeowners easier access to solar panels to put on their houses. That's a big plus for residents to use. So I think there's certainly a variety of different things that folks could do for that, and for the city as well. I think that we should change ordinances to be more environmental friendly as much as we can. We're going through a process right now where we are looking at all of our residential codes for development, and so now's a really great time to be able to look at those codes and add environmental concerns to that.
Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Westman, you're taking your name. Westman,
Yes.
we need to explain what I'm doing.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good.
I got you though. I do.
All right.
Rebecca.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah. You got this. Isn't it fine? I know.
So Rebecca understands the signs. I explained it to her earlier.
So we only have. Okay, all right. Ms. Day, I guess your other candidate is not here today, so you got a little bit of free reign. Would you like to take a couple of minutes and introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about yourself?
I would be happy to, thank you.
Sure.
First, I want to say I'm sorry to hear that my opponent is unfortunately under the weather. I do wish Deb Schender the best to her health, and hopefully she'll get through what she's going through right now. My name is Rebecca Day. I'm here running for seat 6 in Rowlett. I am happy to say that I am a wife of 23 years. I have 2 sons, both are in the Air Force Police. And I have been a citizen of Rowlett for about 5 years now. I've worked for AT&T for 23 years, and they've kind of made me travel across the country and move from town to town. But I've landed now in the headquarters city. I don't see that there's going to be much moving going on anymore, and I'm happy to say that. I'm here to serve today as I feel that I'm a servant leader, and I work really hard to put service before self. Every city I've lived in throughout my life, I've always volunteered and give of myself so that I can try to make my surrounding areas that I'm in and the people that I'm engaging with a better place.
If I can ask, are both your children, did you say they're Air Force Police?
They are.
Are they boys, girls, or mixed?
I have 2 sons. So.
And they're stationed where?
One is stationed in Lackland Air Force Base, getting ready to move to North Dakota, Minot.
Okay.
So there'll be a little bit change in climate there.
And is he a Texas boy, born and raised?
He is not. He was actually born in Missouri.
Okay.
And my other son was born in Missouri as well. And he is stationed in Ohio, getting ready to go to Alaska. So both of them got new stations coming up.
So they're gonna learn what winter coats are. Yeah. All right, so here's the first question. What is your objective in running for city council, and do you have any specific goals for the city?
So my objective for running for city council is to purely give of myself. I stand for integrity and trust in everything that I do. And what I'd like to do are do the 3 things that our Texas Municipal Handbook for council members and mayors require us to do. And those 3 things are: 1, to take in the citizens' input, to listen to the citizens and take on the things that are meaningful for them. 2, to set up programs to support those things as our community changes to make things better for our community. And 3, we need to measure that. We need to measure the way that we are assessing those programs to make sure that they are doing the things that they've set out to accomplish and the goals that they've set forward.
Second question. As a new council member, would you have any concerns on catching up on current city policies and actions at this crucial time for Rowlett?
As a new council member, there will be some challenges for catching up on what's going on in the city. What I've been doing is trying to make myself abreast and studying of all of the materials that we have in the city. Our city website is tremendous. It has lots of resources out there, as we are a transparent government here in Rowlett. And you can go out and research, even archived many years of data and what's happening in the city. Also, meeting with people one-on-one is my approach to learn and take from those past council members and others to learn about the critical issues and what is the background and the history behind that. Gathering facts is very important to me. I'm a data analyst and an analyst for AT&T, so facts are critical in making key decisions, lining up those facts so that you can derive the best decision to be made.
How would you prioritize repair or replacement of streets, alleys, and sidewalks?
So in infrastructure here in Rowlett, we have a critical need to make sure that we can assess all of those. Currently, there is an assessment going on. We've outsourced a company to help us assess our streets and roads. And you may be seeing a van coming around and taking pictures and surveying of our city streets to help us with that assessment. And with these tools, that will help our city employees to give us some direction on the best outcome. We do have an internal process where they're giving us some infrastructure assessments currently already stood up. And quite frankly, we do have needs in our city. Whether it's our water construction or our infrastructure, our streets and our alleys, we do need needs. We don't score an A in any of those areas. So our city is not top notch, and we know that there's some needs out there that have to be done.
I think you may have already answered this question, but I'll ask it again, or I'll ask it as it is written. Given the time demands on any city council member, can you commit to participate at the level citizens expect of you?
I feel like I can meet the time demands that the citizens expect of me. I try really hard to get to all of the events and try to engage in the community. I might not be able to make all of them, but I have put forth a huge time commitment. One thing I know about city council, it is all about times management. I work full time at AT&T, and I know that that will be a time demand on me as well. but I have done mastered time management, as when I was in my, taking my AT&T career at the top of my career in diversity there, I had actually gotten my master's degree. So trying to get a master's and going to work full time can be very hard, but you know that that is a commitment that you make, and when you make a commitment, you put the time forth and you do your time management. Now I'll say I'll do the same for the city, the same research, the same study, the same hours that you put in day out will go into the city as well.
A question for me is, was there a specific event or issue that caused you one day to wake up and say, I'm going to run for city council?
Well, quite frankly, I hadn't anticipated running for city council. I don't have an agenda, but what had encouraged me to do so is I had several people approaching me and saying, you ought to go, you ought to run. I truly am selfless in running for city council. It's service before self. And I really, really want to meet the needs of the citizens. I put myself out there, I give of my whole self in working and for the city and volunteering and trying to research all of the issues that there are so that we can bring those up and try to identify policies, put together tactical plans that can be put forward so that we are making a difference in our community.
Questions from the audience?
I have one. Rebecca, you're on Parks and Recreation,
I am.
Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. There are a number of parks that do not have any development currently. Do you have any thoughts about that at this time?
Yeah, there are a number of parks that don't have development or in much need of development. However, we know that our city funds it's very difficult to try to get those things in place, and unfortunately with some of the top tiered things needed in the city, such as infrastructure, public safety, and even our animal shelters needs as the top 3 on my list, the parks would become 4th. We need to make sure we have a recreational environment for our citizens. It's so important to keep our parks. This is the place where we can bring our families and enjoy life without a huge cost to our families. There are some things that are going on in the parks and continuing to enhance the local parks that we have, but there could be more. And the way we could bring funds to that would be to allow for a city vote in a next bond election to maybe go forward with some of our parks. One of the ones that I would encourage is the continuation of Hereford Park. And we have phase 1 funded, and it's going to be continually going. They're getting ready to break ground, which is wonderful. But we still have phase 2 and 3. Hereford Park is a very important part of our community as it sits on Main. It is like a catalyst, I heard Ronnie Sherrill say. And this is a kind of a meeting ground for all of our citizens in Main Street to keep our community with that small town feel. And I feel that parks are a key to that, in keeping the small town feel, that we have a place to gather and to have fun and nourishing environment for that.
All right, any other questions, comments from the crowd? Ms. Day, we appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
I thought so. I saw that. Here, you want a black magic marker? That's okay. That's okay. We could do it. We could fold this over and put it in. Take it down. Okay. Let's all take 5-minute break before we go with the mayoral candidate. Yeah, I know. I just move it right along. There we go. So, tip off was 3 minutes ago.
I saw that. I was gonna see you like a memo on it. That's not how I put it on my application. You know, my apologies. Yeah, I did. Some guy named Chris is gonna be in there to hang out. Cassiar now. Cause there. That's what I'm saying. I know it. Anyway. Yeah, you made that comment. I don't know either.
Hey, eyes, easy?
No, just the vacation. That's all.
Hey, you know.
Where'd you get it, Joe?
From the office.
Not the cell phone. We should get the sales guys. Amazon. I didn't know that. But I will look them up now. Don't send them for me then, because I don't have the answer for that. What's up? Hang up. Hey, they fixed it. Kind of. I don't know. It's there. Yeah, they put one. It's like one of these scribbled out that day. Yeah, they put a little line on the outside. I don't know about that. Obviously, there's not too much. Oh yeah.
Get back to my division.
They're both on vacation. Well, I think they're best friends. I think they might be on vacation together. I'm total thing go down to eat. I'm like, well, that's great. I told you guys we need to get wings and fresh water a long time ago. It's not normal. It's good to see. Yeah, it makes sense. You know, it's good to see. And see, like I said, about what you can do for the city. It's literally just. Yeah, still need to put a chair. Just simple. I know. Hey, don't look at that scribble mark.
Where did you go?
It was Kazare. Yeah, so yeah, it was like some of these type of lessons.
Yes, that's my wife, and then my two boys are 7 and 12. So then I have 2 older ones that are my older daughter's 23, and I have a 20-year-old son.
They can't hear me?
What did you say?
Oh, candidate. Oh. You can hear me.
That's where we want to go.
I'm from the Midwest where the wind always blows. Speak loud.
What do you think?
I call my wife.
I'm gonna try to.
Shelby Chase.
I'll try to. I'll try to. I'll make light of things. Is that a V8? Here's my sign. What's up, Jeff, by the way? I said hi to you earlier. I apologize. It's all right.
Busy day.
Hey, you know, I can take over for you and you can answer some questions. I wonder how come he's not sitting in today like he did last time. Yeah, he could have done it with everybody.
Yeah, but Jeff, did you do all the video stuff for church?
Do the live stream stuff, yeah. Yeah, we started that pretty much when COVID happened. We realized
You're the
that
reason.
white men in churches we recognize them.
Well,
Could've been
I
very
wanted to
effective.
ask a question, but I wanted a non-political answer.
I can give you a non-political answer.
You guys are gonna get the questions. Okay.
All right. Is everybody ready? All right, so first of all, I owe an apology to Mr. Britton and Mr. Lanning for not allowing them to introduce themselves to you all. I made a big assumption that you kind of already knew who the candidates were, so I apologize to both of them. Now, to make up for it, I'm going to let these three gentlemen take 2 minutes each to introduce themselves to you all. And I might also add, I've had the suggestion that to let you all know that if you feel more comfortable standing or walking around, you're free to do so. So with that in mind, Chris, I'll let you start and introduce yourself briefly to the audience. Tell us who you are and why you run.
First of all, you get 2 minutes.
Okay.
When you have 30 seconds left, I will hold this up. When you've run out of time, I will hold this up.
There, put the mic off.
And then after that, somebody takes you out physically.
I might remind the candidates, and I never have this problem because I have a big mouth. Some of the people in the audience can't hear you, so speak loudly so that everybody can hear you, okay?
Fair enough.
All right, Chris?
All right, my name is Chris Kazar. I am a 30-year resident of Rowlett, self-employed entrepreneur, if you will. Built a couple of big companies here in the area, most known for Life Message and the Veterans Resource and Outreach Center. Obviously for me, it's all about the community. We focus all of our attention towards those that are in need. Have committed my entire 30 years here in 3 big areas. Deals in obviously education. I'm very large into the school system here. I'm part of the Garland Education Foundation as well. Economic development has been proven from my time with the Chamber of Commerce. That is very probably one of my largest pieces of this campaign for me is economic development. And then the other courses into government affairs. I represent probably a unique bunch in the fact that I've been here for so long, committed so much of my time, thousands of hours I've given to our community. I think Wesley put it right a while ago, something about touting on yourself is pretty hard. For those who know me, that's very, very difficult. But I have won several awards in this city for giving my time. It is very, very important for me that the citizens of Rowlett get exactly what they need. And again, I have focused the majority of my life in trying to, whether it be from the actual citizens or our veterans or first responders, we are here to make life better, and we're going to make this city better than it was when I got here. So,
Joel?
My name is Joel Medina. I am a Rowlett citizen for the past 7 years. We moved here when my youngest one was about 3 months still, till he arrived. Love the city. I've driven through the city many times as a young boy. I lived in Garland. My dad and I fished Rowlett Creek all the time, so there were a lot of times we drove through Rowlett, and I really enjoyed just the scenery, the placement, the way that the feel was, going to it's simple as the gas station, the grocery store, the small town home field to me felt very comfortable. I did not know that I would be living in this city when I was 13 years old, but I did a couple of prayers about it, and here we are with my beautiful family. One of the reasons I chose to get involved, one, I am self-employed since 2008, successful company. I've learned a lot of things along the way, speaking with corporate CEOs, CFOs, presidents, and many, many jobs, many payments, many checks. I have a lot of time on my hands as I do not work in the field. I only approve estimates and I also pay payroll, so there's a lot of time that I have to invest in this city. My main concerns getting involved was seeing the direction of the decisions made by our council. There's a lot of questions that we all have, especially recently, about some of the things that we're being exposed to at the ceremony of Godfrey's retirement is one of them. Some of these things are very, very important to me. I take up for the little guy. I take up for the guy who's being picked on. And starting the company was a leap of faith, and this is another leap of faith that I'm taking to represent the citizens and reconnect Rowlett.
Blake?
Yes, Blake Margolis. I am a lifelong 22-year resident of Rowlett. I first got my start in local government at around 6 years old. There was, speaking of future parks, there was an open field next to my neighborhood. And the city had put a sign out there that said future park and that it would be built in 3 years. And so the 3 years came and went. And so there were signs around the city that said town hall meeting. So I wanted to go to town hall meeting, so I got in my suit at 6 years old and asked the mayor and council where the park was. This was before I understood what a recession was. So leaving that meeting was where I got my interest in local government, and fast forward to 14, and I was asked by the chairman of the Parks Board to serve on the Parks Board as a junior alternate member. And I served there for 3 different terms, and until I ran for council, and have been serving on council ever since. And so, you know, why am I here today? I'm here because I believe I have the leadership skills and the right experience that matters to move Rowlett forward to being more transparent and proactive. And you know, it's time for bold new leadership, and I am looking forward to being able to bring about the positive changes that this city needs and deserves.
All right. Joel, question number 1. Would you support affordable housing in Rowlett? And if so, in what form? Single family, multifamily, or both?
I would say both in the right locations. With affordable housing, there are concerns from citizens that I have spoken with. We have to be sure and mindful of the growth of Rowlett and the existing citizens. Our police department would need more funding, obviously. We would need more police officers on patrol. We just had a recent robbery attempt at a 7-Eleven, and I think that if we had more police officers on the road passing by at certain times, that might not have happened. The police force is underfunded. I think they're underappreciated and definitely not supported properly. Again, we have to make sure that if we invite any other multifamily mixed use, there has to be proper police force on the beat. We have to make sure that our citizens are safe at all times. So the only concern I would have is what does that bring to Rowlett in the form of subsidized living, and just to make sure that Rowlett is prepared for that, not only from our police force, but also infrastructure.
Chris, you want me to repeat the question?
No, not at all. I am obviously a very large proponent of affordable housing. For those who know the world that I play in, it is all about trying to take care of all the citizens. I'm not talking about Section 8 housing, I'm talking about affordable housing. There's a big difference in those two. Affordable housing for us, you know, it's not always just about just the workforce environments, it's the youth. I mean, for most of us, when I was a child being defined, you know, 18, 19, 20 years old, and I first got married, I had to have an apartment to go to. People think that apartments are bad. Well, in the wrong place, they are not as good as they could be. But again, I'm not here to say that we don't need to not have any more apartments. I am saying strategically in the right place. I am an advocate for affordable housing. I think, as outlined earlier, when it comes to housing as in houses, it'd be a little more difficult because of the prices today and what they are. When it comes to multifamily housing, absolutely, I'm in favor of it. Logistically put in the right place, obviously. We're going to need it as we continue to grow as a city with what we're getting into. We're going to need that kind of housing. Now, what that looks like, well, the council is going to have some big decisions later to kind of figure it out. But for me personally, in the right place, at the right time, absolutely, I'm going to be a proponent of it.
I support affordable housing, but single-family affordable housing at this time. We've currently reached a point where, in terms of multifamily, where we're straining our current resources and infrastructure. Apartments aren't bad. It's just when you bring in 6,000 units online, roughly around the same time frame, that's going to strain your police department, your fire department, your parks, your public works. And so being able to build up our resources in order to sustain those services that we are required to provide will be important. And we're still not caught up and won't be caught up for a while with the growth that we've already experienced of all of these developments taking place. But when it comes to single family affordable housing, absolutely, I believe there's a place for that in this community, and there's a strong need for that in this community.
Since this seems to be an issue, quite frankly, throughout North Texas, in today's Dallas Morning News, there's an excellent article about a church on Garland Road that is going to sell their church, and they're going to sell it to an apartment complex. And the writer of the article refers to something called NIMBY. I believe I pronounced that correct. It's not in my backyard, okay? Everybody is for affordable housing, but not in my backyard. So, starting with you, Joel, how do you handle the issue of not in my backyard regarding affordable housing?
First, I would sit with the Economic Development Committee and ask them what their thoughts of future growth is, position-wise. I think that listening to them and what they've already established is probably important, very important, as to not walk in and try to take over anything. But I would highly recommend positioning these multifamily units not in somebody's backyard and in the right areas. Again, back to that, in the right location. There's a lot of places in Rowlett where it's going to be hard. I know coming up after Sapphire Bay and the North Shore development, it's going to be hard to not place it in somebody's backyard. But the citizens have a lot of input. I'm always going to go back to the citizens' input on everything. The majority is always going to rule in my book. And my main goal is to see which direction the citizens want Rowlett to go. So I can have an opinion on where I want them. But again, my opinion may be met with pushback from the citizens. So Economic Development Committee, let's talk to them, let's see what we have. Some of these patches of land that we have after those two developments are complete, it's gonna be kind of hard to squeeze in multifamily apartments. So again, it's gonna come down to citizens' vote. So I'm gonna leave it with that.
Now, Blake, I'm going to ask you to answer that question. I'm going to repeat it. How do you handle the not in my backyard issue? I appreciate you said that you were not supportive of multifamily, but affordable housing includes entities such as Habitat for Humanity, and having had some personal connection with that entity, I promise you that there are opponents of Habitat because they don't want it in their backyard. So with that in mind, explain to the audience how you handle the issue of not in my backyard.
So being on council for the last 5 years, NIMBY is almost every decision that we're making. So it's a balancing act. You know, every decision you make, 50% of people may disagree and 50% may agree. So you really have to look at what do you think is the best interest of the community. When it comes to affordable housing, I mean, if the zoning meets the requirements, then they don't even need to come to council for a decision, and they have the right under law to develop that with their affordable housing product. If it's multifamily, just recently within the last couple years, we approved a special use permit process. So even if there's property zoned multifamily, they're still required to come to council to seek that special use permit application. So that's where you're back to making that decision on what is the best product for the community.
Chris?
Absolutely, I'll chime in on that every day. So a couple of things there. One, it's interesting that you mentioned on the Dallas Morning News today, I guess, about a church. We dealt with that same thing recently in the last 2 or 3 years with a church here on Main Street that tried to go down that road. Obviously failed miserably. But for me, especially when you get into things like with Habitat, affordable housing is one of those things that it can be in your neighborhood. The thing to remember is that those individuals, and I say this because we've been working with Habitat from the veteran standpoint, these folks are qualified people that can come in. These are not people who are homeless trying to get a house. These are people who have an actual income of nature that says, look, I'm going to take care of that house. The fact that it's affordable only means that there are benefits that are throughout the state that enable them to get in for lesser prices. So affordable housing with the NIMBY world, and trust me, I've gone down that road before when with our charity we had to find ourselves a spot which luckily got changed up later when we signed new leases. We don't want NIMBYs to be dictating where the housing goes. We just won't put housing next to the NIMBYs. But the reality of it is when it comes to Habitat for Humanity, which we are very passionate about in my world, is we are definitely going to be in favor of putting a house here or a house there. Because again, reminding ourselves, this is not a group of people who don't have jobs. They don't have income. These are actually folks who have an income and have great credit that they can get in these things just more affordable. So I am in favor of that all day long when it comes to more affordable housing. And then again, strategically when it comes to the apartments, multifamily parts, we can avoid putting them in the middle of downtown area. And just, again, there are areas that would accommodate for that. So I would say absolutely.
All right, Chris, you have the next question first. And I believe one of the candidates for council mentioned this. Dallas County residents have been opening up their new county appraisal values to find shocking increases in their property value. While this is great for resale value, it's not so great for property tax costs. In order to help offset some of this burden, would you consider an increase of the city's homestead exemption?
Well, I'm one of those homeowners who got nabbed by DCAD, I'm not against raising homestead. I don't think it impacts the city that much. I mean, you're talking about the conversation today goes from 25, I think, to 40,000. I don't think that impacts us all that much. I think that there's going to be some protests that are going to go unanswered, unfortunately. We will not be able to see our prices go down. So the only other answer comes into tax cuts. So for me personally, again, I looked at mine raised up by $70,000 this year. It's kind of a what? So I'm not sure how they managed to justify that in their own thought process, but the reality comes into a Homestead Act increase really is not that major of an impact as far as I can think of for the city. So,
Blake?
Yes, I would absolutely support a homestead exemption increase on the city's portion. Currently, the city's homestead exemption for all homeowners is $5,000. For the disabled community, that's $50,000, and for the senior community, that's $30,000. Rowlett, and for all homeowners, the $5,000 is basically the base, and it has not been moved up, and it's not even been a discussion point and budget preparation meetings from the council. And so I would want this discussion regarding the homestead exemption to be one of the top discussion points in the upcoming budget sessions, to try and help those who are receiving these untenable appraisal values that they're receiving in the mail.
And Joel?
As a homeowner, I would definitely be for it. I think, again, I go back to the citizens first. Anything that helps our citizens, even if it's a little bit, would be beneficial and very appreciative of our citizens. My wife showed us our appraisal, and I was kind of shocked myself. So, you know, we want to make sure it's comfortable living in Rowlett throughout. So yes, I would be for it.
All right, do we have questions from the audience?
I know what Blake has done in the past, but I believe in volunteerism, you know that. And I would like to know from you three, what boards and commissions have you been on? Have you been to the Citizens Academy? That's real important because they get to know what goes on in your community. I mean, in the departments, you go to every department. Leadership, all that was another wonderful class that they had. So I just want to know, have you been through Fire Police Academy, Citizens Academy? What have you done in the area of volunteer?
And you want to direct that to one candidate in particular, or you want to
I
do all
want to
three?
know from Chris and Joe, because I know what Blake has done, I know what I've done, so, but others may not know it. So any of them can answer, as far as I'm concerned.
All right, I think we'll start with Joel, and then we'll go to Chris, and then we'll let Blake, okay? Gentlemen?
Okay, so to answer your question, I've lived in Rowlett for 7 years. I've been active in Rowlett, going to make sure I attend as many council meetings as possible to learn and listen. I've devoted a lot of my time over the past 2 years in local awareness and bringing awareness to citizens on a platform that I was blessed with. I want to make sure that everybody understands that when you make a decision sitting with the council and you're there to vote and you have a vote, the boards and commissions do train you a lot in the background, but your decision ultimately comes from a lot of how you were raised, what you've been taught, your morals and values. I have been attacked online by people who actually work for, and I apologize, Jeff, but for the Arts and Humanity Commission. So I'm very careful on where I involve myself to make sure that I can input myself and make sure I have the best impact possible with the right people surrounding me. The fact that I do not have a lot of this Rowlett experience being a volunteer or on a commission or on a board, I find it challenging. I think it's going to be an amazing experience. I do not have what you would call friendships within the city. So a lot of my decisions aren't going to be based on whether I offend somebody or whether I have a friendship that's in jeopardy. A lot of it's going to be based on a business mentality that I've experienced over the past 13, 14 years, and that's my take on it. I would love to have had more experience in the background, but at the same time, as a businessman, I think that that's one of my strongest assets, and I'm not sure that when the decision comes down to it, I'm going to remember every board and commission I've been on.
Chris?
Well, in simple terms, if the word academy comes after it, I have not served on it. So you include all those. But dating back, I was on the long-term recovery committee when the tornado hit. I've served as on the board and chair of the Rowlett Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber Foundation. I currently serve on the Economic Development Advisory Board. I serve on the Board of Adjustments. I serve on the COAD board, which is the Community Organizations Active in Disasters. I serve on the Garland Education Foundation board. I sit on another board, which is the Heroes Bridge Memorial Park Foundation. And then, of course, as the founder, I'm also on the board for Life Message and the Veterans Resource and Outreach Center. So 10 plus years on all these boards I've served on. If it deals in the give back, I do. I have missed out on the academies, but You know, as a business owner and as a big charity owner, it takes a little bit more time, but thank you for the question.
Blake?
Yes, I've served on I went through the Police Academy, the Fire Academy, the Citizens City Academy, Leadership Rowlett, and I've served as chair of the Ethics Subcommittee, member of the Finance and Audit Committee, member of the Code and Environmental Review Committee, member of the Court Governance Committee, member of the Garland ISD Cities Coalition, member of the North Texas Commission Cities Coalition, member of the Rowlett Business Stimulus Committee, co-founding member of the Community Organizations Active in Disaster, council liaison to the Youth Advisory Council, council liaison to the Texas Municipal League, council liaison and member of the 2018 Strategic Planning Committee, serve on the Community Emergency Response Team and Fire Corps, and so that would be, and then of course Parks Board before I got on council.
More questions from the audience? This gentleman back here?
So with everybody brought up taxes, and that seems to be a main focus, what are your ideas to bring in, each one of you, to bring in business that would relieve the tax burden from the property taxes? Because if you have bigger business, getting that tax would obviously do that. And secondly, somebody brought up the senior citizens has a 30%, $30,000. Would you consider trying to pass something for the senior citizens where taxes would be frozen, where they couldn't go at that point?
All right. Chris, you want to take this one first?
Sure.
I believe the question was, how do you attract business? Is that
What would drive sales be to bring in business to the city of Rowlett?
And then the taxes.
Because that's going to generate tax revenue.
And then your second question was senior citizens freeze of
freezing their taxes where they could not go up. I was just told that already occurred.
I see.
Yeah. This as we get older, we'd definitely like that to happen. So we're getting close to that one, I can tell you.
If you're on a fixed income, then
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not too far away from that, so I was obviously going to comment. That's definitely something we all want, and we have. So when it comes to economic development, probably one of my stronger suits. Obviously sitting on the Economic Development Advisory Board. When you take an entrepreneur guy and you put him in business, I basically work 70 hours a week towards building. I have a vision for the future. I'm the guy that will literally go face to face, shake your hand. This is not about sending out an email and says, hey, come join us. It is extremely proactive. Go out, talk to those businesses that fit within whatever our codes are. That the North Shore is going to be a great topic conversation up there. What we'll be able to go in is we need to go visit with those corporations that are up there and get them to come down here. Incentives is a big question mark today to be worked through for them, but for me, hands-on, face-to-face, shaking hands is how you get that done. The marketing piece is great for the economic development, and you got to give some credit to Libby, who's getting more marketable today with her material, but the reality comes into nothing beats a face-to-face, and that's something that I will do, of course, along with economic development.
Okay, Joel?
So I am self-employed. I have graciously been able to duplicate myself with my project manager over the past 13 years. So the only thing that I really do, like I said, is estimates, approval estimates, invoicing, and payroll. So I have plenty of time on my hands to jump on a plane. I would type in the top 50 businesses that are across the United States, especially in growing communities, locally first, Frisco, Allen, McKinney, and I would approach the businesses if they're local, have meetings with them with our Economic Development Committee. If we had to fly and go out of state, I would dedicate my own personal time and money to do so, to go meet with these people and invite them to our city, show them our city, and do it where it's a couple of days. We involve more council members so they could see how we run our city, and show them the spots and the locations that are available, along with the North Shore development. That's going to be the prime time land area, and I would invite them and interact with them, as Chris said, shaking a hand, face to face, committing your time, making sure that the right people are sitting in front of these businesses to attract them to Rowlett.
Blake?
When it comes to economic development, I don't think we've done enough. We allocate a portion of our budget to economic development advertising for different corporations and businesses across the country. And every year that I've been on council, we've had roughly 20,000 left over every year out of that, so it's not being spent. So one of the questions I raised to staff, typically every time we have a budget, which is, if you're not using it, why do you need it? Or you just need to use it and use the money for advertising. There's plenty of resources out there. So that's one of the new things now, is now we're using the money to where it needs to go for online advertising, and to target those brokerage firms and other businesses to let them know that Rowlett is open for business. Currently, we're at 70% reliance on property tax for residential, and so we absolutely need more commerce in the city to offset that burden on the residential property owners. When it comes to property tax exemptions, yes, we currently have a senior tax freeze. We're one of 7 cities in North Texas to have that. And overall, all exemptions combined equals roughly $8 million, which is a significant impact on the city budget, but that's to help provide some relief to our residents who need it.
Questions from the audience?
I've been a longtime member of the Golf Advisory Board for the city of Rowlett. And in your personal opinion, how valuable is Waterview Golf Course to the city of Rowlett as one of its assets?
Do you want to ask all 3 of the
Yes.
candidates of
Yes,
that?
I need to know all 3 opinions.
Blake, let's
Sure.
start with you and we'll work our way down. Blake, Joel, then Chris, okay?
Yes, so we've invested quite a bit of money into the golf course. The 2018 bond election was over $1 million to improve the greens. We continue to put some money aside to improve the Waterview Golf Course, but it's still a pain to keep everything maintained there. You know, is it the most important asset? Obviously not. You know, we don't need a golf course, but it's nice to have one to provide for our community. And as long as it's sustainable, absolutely we should continue to invest in that asset for our community.
Joel?
I would, my son is 7 and he's actually in golf classes, and I have to mention his name, Isaac. He just recently started, so he really enjoys Waterview Golf Club, and the teacher is an amazing guy. I've been to that golf course. I actually got one of my first eagles on that golf course. They have a small three-hole course in the back. I think it's very valuable to Rowlett. Unfortunately, I think there are other things that are lacking in funding. Our police department's one of them. They could probably utilize some of that funding. I'm not sure if we can change direction or not give so much funding to them, they could allocate funding somewhere else. I think that would be appropriate. But again, you know, that's kind of one of those things where my son is involved. I think it's a great thing Rowlett has. But there are things that are lacking funding that might precedent the golf club. So.
Chris?
Well, I'm a golfer, so I'm always in favor of golf courses. There's a lack of entertainment in this city anyway, so how do you put a priority on that one? Well, again, I'm a golfer, so I would want to say, you know, where's the draw the line at to what you give to that? I mean, the fact that you're asking that question, I hope is not some implied piece that it's rethinking the golf course, because I haven't heard that, but I'm a proponent of it, and whatever we need to make sure, again, we have so little entertainment type things here. The Chamber of Commerce holds their annual golf tournament there, so we're in favor of what it brings. It brings an opportunity for people to come into this city because we bring them from all over. So I'm a proponent of that, so we need to keep that around.
I could make an argument here.
And so Chris opened the door for me, and I will ask the question. Is Joel's son an exception in the sense of, are young people from the age of, say, 5 to 30 interested in golf? Or is that a bygone hobby of us people pushing that senior citizen on?
Sure, I'll chime on that one too. So, as part of the Garland ISD environment, I know we struggle in that area getting our kids to get to the golf course. I know that a lot of colleges will offer scholarships that way. I love the idea that you're playing golf at that age. Unfortunately, it's more so committed to the old folks nowadays, getting out there and doing their thing. I don't mean old as in like 80, but the younger generation needs to be more on the golf course. I would be a great proponent for that. And again, I see that over at Rowlett High School. I don't know anybody. I have 4 grandkids, and none of them are interested in that. It's a kudos to you, young man, because my grandson is this guy. Let me do this little gaming thing all the time. So I'm saying get your backside out and get on that golf course. So I'm in favor of it. I just, there needs to be more of it.
Joel, is your son an exception? No, I know he's an exceptional son. That's
Well, here's the cool thing. He just mentioned one that's on the gaming. Well, I have one that's on the gaming, and the other one is completely opposite. So, I want to invest into each one of them what their interests are. I want to make sure that they're given the tools and the environment to grow and learn and expose those talents that they have, because that's what you do. You give them pianos and artwork, and you try to expose what they're best at. This is my 4th time, and it's amazing to see how different they all are. And you love every one of them the same, and it's kind of hard to explain. But like I said, I think it's a good thing that Rowlett has the golf club. My biggest thing about the golf club is the financing. We are lacking. Our police department right now, again, should be the utmost important as far as financing. So to hear the numbers, it's kind of it's a little shocking, because I don't really get involved in the finances for the golf club, but to hear that, and to know that we need more police officers, it throws me off a little bit. So as just a citizen, I'm pretty sure that's probably going to be the reaction to a lot of our citizens. So exception to the rule, not because he's my son, no. Can I take him elsewhere to other golf clubs to do that? Absolutely.
Blake?
So, being in an age bracket, I can say that 3 years ago, I got a brand new set of golf clubs that I still haven't used. So one day I will go out to Waterview Golf Course and use them. I think that obviously the sport is for all ages to enjoy. So, do seniors maybe use the golf course more? Sure, probably. But it's still open for everybody to play. So,
and of course, and I'm not going to press the issue, but my question was in terms of, while we're sitting here today, we can talk about the problems we have tomorrow. But if we're really going to be effective leaders, we got to be thinking about 20 years from now. And golf courses are a major capital investment. And so do we do that capital investment for a 20-year project down the line when in fact it may not be something people want 20 years from now?
That's a great question. I think that's one of those when you have to face it when the time comes. I mean, I think if, let's say, tomorrow we were in a severe recession and you have to start prioritizing your needs and go back to the essential services component, then you start to have to cut those non-essential services, and the golf course would be one of those. It wouldn't just be the golf course; it'd be a multitude of non-essential services if we were to be in a devastating recession. So when hopefully that time never comes, but you have to be prepared to make those tough decisions when that time, if that time does come.
Chris, since Blake picked that up a little bit, talk a little bit about balancing tomorrow's needs with what our needs are 20 years from now.
Well, I'm considered a visionary guy, so I say go out and find more commerce. You know, there was golfers 100 years ago, there'll be golfers again, I won't say 100 years from now, but won't be around then, but there'll be golfers long-standing in the future. To me, it's an investment, and you're right. 20 years out, you need to invest. This is definitely one of those things that as a piece of entertainment, you find the funds. I was asked recently about what happens if you have to make cuts. Where do you make the cuts at? And the answer is not things like the golf course or the library or, no, you go get more commerce. You get off your backside and go find it. This is what I will bring to the table. You need more money. We're going to bring in more folks who are going to believe in what we believe in, and we're going to grow it. So again, to me, you have to invest to plan. Yes, you got to spend the $1 million to make the course amenable, but you don't spend that thing every day. You don't spend it every year. You know, those are investments that would be done every so many years, probably every 2 or 3 bond, maybe. I don't know the timelines for those, but you have to invest in that future if you want it to be around. And for me, it just all comes down to commerce. Go find it and bring it here so that you don't have to make those sacrifices.
Joel, we'll let you finish that topic, and that is balance tomorrow's needs with our needs 20 years from now.
So mine is quick and simple. We have infrastructure issues right now. We're going to have infrastructure issues moving forward as Rowlett grows. Within 2 years, we've grown with thousands of people, and we are suffering right now. And to me, the more we add development, multifamily, single family, we need to utilize every asset and dollar on our infrastructure before we do anything else. So my main thought process is, if we're struggling now, in 10 years from now, it's going to be a lot worse. 10 years is a lot on roads. When you're talking 20 some odd $1 million, it goes a long way within 10 years. So there's a lot that can be done with that money.
Questions from the audience? This young lady.
You brought it up, so I'm going to continue with that. What about young people today? What could the city do to have something, because a lot of people say there's nothing for them to do here, you know? So is there one thing you could think of that we might can do as a city to have something available for the young people to do?
And what I'm going to ask you to do is, I want you to point to which candidate you want to answer that question first. Okay?
One thing from each person.
Okay, which one of the candidates needs to answer the question first?
All of them.
Okay, no, okay. There's 3. We got to go 1, 2, 3. You pick who's number 1.
Oh, I pick who's.
Yeah. Pick which candidate.
How about if I just go first?
Okay, Joel, there we go. All right.
My age is 46. I have young kids. I have 4 kids total, 23, 20, 12, and 7. And finding things for them to do in a small town, it's going to be difficult. You know, there's church, there's youth group meetings. You can push them in that direction. The parks that we have, I know that there's a great Frisbee park that's in Garland. What's the name of that? It's by the wave pool over there in Garland. So Audubon Park. There's things that you can add to the existing parks to make it more inclusive of the younger generation. Because I know Frisbee golf is a big thing, golf for you, but you know, kids that are between the age, I would say between 18 and probably 28 are Frisbee golf enthusiasts. They love Frisbee golf. It's going to be hard to isolate, you know, younger generation, 21 and over. There's locations you can go to, their, you know, restaurants and bars, which people are into as well. It's going to be hard to tap into what would attract young people to Rowlett. Dog parks, you know, we have a couple, but they seem like they're isolated to apartment complexes or, you know, housing developments. So it's going to be hard to focus in on that group, that age group, and attract them in a specific way.
So Blake, you're of that age group. How do we attract more Blakes?
Well,
or do we want to?
So the good news, you spoke about Frisbee golf. We're actually getting a new Frisbee golf course behind the community center.
Nice.
So it's going in very soon. We have the materials, so that'll be exciting. Yeah, trying to attract programs for youth is very difficult because, like we were discussing earlier, a lot of them really do want to just stay on the computer, video games, and so getting them out and in the community is definitely a challenge. One of the great resources we have is the community center, and after school they have after school programs, and you'll see after school there's tons of like high schoolers that get out and go straight to the community center. And in front of the library, we've had some problems with a lot of the youth there getting out there and causing a little bit of trouble. So what the library has done is started to create some after-school programs for that age group. So it's going to take a multi-pronged approach, but if you can keep them out of trouble and doing some good in the community, that's absolutely what we want.
Chris?
The city has a variety of programs for the youth. We need more private programs from the schools. I will tell you one of the bigger ones that's becoming up new nowadays is the Tony Rory's bunch, which is the Men and Ladies of Honor, getting more proactive in things of importance about your spirituality and as a person growing. But other than that, you're talking about commerce. You've got to get entertainment in here. And where are you going to find them? You'll knock on their door. We have a lack of that. We have a bowling alley. That's all we've got here. And yes, I'm glad to hear I didn't know about the Frisbee parks. That's good to hear. But we don't have enough. Our parks piece, there was a regatta this morning, so I heard you're like number one or something. You're the steering person of the boat that number one. So granted, she's not the youth of today, but like that. No offense, of course. You're a mother. You have kids that are younger, so not really young, but I look at that as you must realize that the city itself must increase some of the programs. The schools need to increase programs, believe in the aspects of groups like the Men and Ladies of Honor, and they need to go out and get more commerce because we are definitely missing that component. And they're coming in all around us, but we need to go out and knock on some doors and get some guys to come on board. So maybe even something for you, young man. You're a gaming dude, so unless you go to Retrocade, you haven't been over there yet. That's an old guy's place to go.
Tell him about that.
I love the Donkey Kong game. That's a great game. I'm telling you, I grew up with that, so experience the past.
Questions from the audience?
I have something I'd like you to consider. Back during the John Harper period, he was mayor, on economic development, one of the efforts was to bring in a higher education institution. This coincided with the idea that the TR District Technology and Research, now known as the North Shore, was intended to be something like the telecom corridor. But a component of that would have been, if John had been successful, to have brought in something like Texas A&M Commerce and had a campus here in the North Shore District. So I'd be interested in what your thoughts are. And let me explain why I'm asking. Because on a national basis, an educational institution like that is reflected, for example, in San Jose, California, or in Austin, Texas, or in Frisco, in the DFW area. Been very important for other organizations, whether they're directly related to commerce or somehow related to bringing people in who are interested in commerce and nevertheless have the skills and the education in order to be able to expand upon and build upon those skills and education within this community. So I've not heard anything recently about economic development focused with regard to an educational institution. I spoke with some folks about this, and they said it all would only be necessary to have about 40 acres. And, but it is something that has immense value on a long-term basis if you were to have something like that here. And so whether or not anything is going on now, I nevertheless ask each one of you, whoever becomes mayor, to seriously consider that as a long-term goal, as a dream, basically, for you to be able to contribute to the city. So, and if you have anything you'd like to say along that line, I really appreciate it.
Well, I'll chime in. So, one of the things, and I believe North Shore allots for that capability up there, if we can just find the right fit to get up and bring an educational component up in that area. I will draw attention to the GISD thing, which is the Gilbert Reed Technical Institute over there. That place is designed for those who do not really want to go to college. It is designed for juniors and seniors to go there during those years, and they will teach you the life skills, whether you want to be a veterinarian or a florist, or you want to be a robotech kind of guy, or you want to be a television producer. They will teach you. So that education component, though, is only restricted to the youth, which is important for us that are in that arena. But again, the North Shore, I believe, accommodates for that within the thought process. You're right, it needs to be somebody who needs to go out and find it. Unfortunately, before, when Jim was here, maybe we were a little complacent in how we tried to put together a more economic direction. Libby seems to be pushed a little bit more, so we'll see. But whoever is mayor, if I become mayor, I will push for those areas. That's something that's important for me, the education fund. So, yes.
Yeah.
Let's do Blake first, and we'll let Joe finish.
I would absolutely support a higher educational structure over there in the North Shore. There's been some discussion regarding another development in the city where that is a potential. So it's not something that hasn't been thought of recently, but the North Shore is prime for that kind of development for sure.
Real simple, I would advocate for it as well. I think it's important that we have a location for the community, not only our community, but the surrounding communities to come to, and also maybe bring some of their spending here to Rowlett as well to some of our businesses. So I would definitely advocate for it as well if it came up.
Questions from the audience? All right, I have one last bonus question. We're going to have Blake answer this first, then Chris, and then Joel. What methods would you like to see employed to increase the energy efficiency of various city assets, not just to save money, but to also reduce environmental impacts?
This is one of the aspects that I've been looking into somewhat recently over the last couple of years, is to have a street light replacement program. Currently, we're running high pressure sodium bulbs. They're orange, they're not very nice, they're not safe, and they use a lot of energy, and they're costly. And so other cities around us have started implementing a streetlight retrofit program, and we seem to be like on an island here where we're not really doing that yet. There's a program by the Texas Energy Conservation Office that will do low interest financing for communities to begin retrofitting their cities. Arlington is one of those. All of their lights have been changed out to LED. And how they finance it is they allocate the cost savings from switching to LED to pay down the financing of those lights. So you're really not having much of an out-of-pocket impact. And this helps for long-term return on investment and energy efficiency as well. That's one aspect of it. The other is regarding our other assets like structures, our buildings. We are needing to replace a lot of our lighting inside of our buildings with LEDs. We've started to fund some of those measures. The community center is one of those. When it comes to other equipment like AC units, making sure that those are energy efficiency units is important. I'd like to see some implementation of solar, if that's possible, in some of our future facilities. That'll help with cost saving. So there are different aspects that you can approach the energy efficiency subject. And one of the main ones that I want to accomplish is the streetlight retrofit program.
Chris?
Well, to think about trying to retrofit all of our facilities would definitely be a very large endeavor that would be. But you could obviously try to get into better lighting, better toilets. The new facilities obviously that are being considered would be where you would put the biggest impact for energy efficiency, but I'm in favor of solar as well. That's something that I don't know that many of the, I don't think, like you may know, the facilities that we have currently that are on solar, I don't think we have any.
We don't have any.
But I believe wholeheartedly that you can only start with small pieces. The lighting piece is one of them, of course. We're trying to do that over at our facility now. You start planning for the future, which is the new facilities that we built currently are so old. It would take an awful lot to get those things up to code today with what we want to have as far as energy efficiency goes. So you got to spend a little bit of money today, but plan for tomorrow, and that's what we all look forward to.
So me personally, I'll speak on my own home. I have gone through, and every single one of my lights in my house are all LED, 12 volt. So you go from 60 watts, 70 watts, even a dim light at 45 watts, it's still draining a lot of your power when your young boys leave lights on in the bathroom, or at the end of the night you're going through and there's lights in their room, the bathroom, the kitchen, the office, and then maybe another dining room light on. So you have to do this, go through the house and turn all the lights off. But with the technology today, I have even hue lights that I could get on my phone on an app and turn everything on. And it's all 12 volts, so that has helped with our own personal electric bill. So I would reach out to the citizens and make that a big responsibility and push that as much as possible and tell people, give them a format, even which lights to use, for what occasions, depending on what you like. And I would start there because I think the citizens are more proactive than we want to believe. We are seeing a lot of citizens show up at city council meetings, which I think is great, but I think this can also have a high impact citywide if we get our citizens to participate in their own homes first. And then, Blake, like you said, those are great ideas. Like you said, it may be kind of a tough battle, long term, but I think our citizens can play a big role in that.
All right. Any further questions from the audience? If I can make two quick comments, and that is, I think the citizens of Rowlett are blessed with the candidates they have for their public offices. I am reminded that in law school I learned this concept that seems to be not as popular now as it was when I went to law school, and that was reasonable people can disagree. There's nothing wrong with that. And then the second thing is, I'll remind you again as you leave, there's a war going on and democracy takes work, and we all need to pat ourselves a little bit on the back for taking our Saturday afternoon. We could be doing something else, trying to educate ourselves and trying to be a real force for democracy. And I thank all of the candidates for appearing here today. And now let's all go home and root for the Mavericks.
Good job, gentlemen.
Thanks again. Sorry I had to call out the Arts and Humanity thing. That's why I apologize to you first.
No worries.
I don't like bringing it up, but it's there.
Understood.